Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, lovely people, depending on where you are watching us from in this beautiful world. Tania and I just had a bit of a conversation about where she's been flying around, sharing her amazing story, but we'll get into that in a minute. I always like sharing a little story how my guest and I connected before I hand over the virtual microphone here to you, Tania, to introduce yourself. Um, the connection is Kathy Domine, the Backyard Peace Project that has just launched. Let's give it a little ad break here. And it's such a beautiful community of practitioners to share our services, our amazing things and skills that we have, and build community to foster peace in this world. So this is your beautiful ad break, Kathy. And now I'm going to switch over to you, Tania, because you then reached out to me when you realize the work that I'm doing. And in that whole process, you lost your husband. So there was that instant connection about you and I looking at things very, very differently. I'll let you share the story because we actually ended up catching up in person, which happens rarely for me because I have guests from all over the world sharing the story. But you came to Sydney and we sat and had dinner together, which was so lovely. So without further ado, I want to say a very, very warm welcome. I'm so grateful that we're finally having our conversation online. Would you do us the honor to introduce yourself to our audience? Welcome, Tania.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's lovely to be here and it's a privilege to be able to share my story and what I do, Marie. So thank you for suggesting this, and it was an opportunity I jumped at. And
Of course.
so my story is I come from southern New Zealand. That's where I grew up, and I met my husband when he was 18, I was 16. We only knew each other 10 days, and he said, "Will you marry me?" And I said, "Yes."
I love
So
this.
we instantly fell in love. We literally grew up together. We got married when I was 19 and 21. We didn't even live anywhere near each other. We were 10 hours apart when we met each
Oh,
other,
wow.
and back then we had
How
to
did you
keep.
even meet? I'm sorry, I have to pause you there.
Oh
Like 10
yes.
hours apart at that age. How did you even
So
meet?
we were both volunteering at a children's holiday program at Christmas time.
Wow.
So
No way.
we were just leaders on a children's holiday program, and we'd never met each other. And yeah, we had lots of mutual friends, and then we just
Oh,
sparked right from the beginning. And
because
it
that was
was,
before social media. It was not just
yeah,
that you can, Snapchat and be online and all
I
that. So,
know.
yeah.
And a phone call was literally a week's wages. So we actually had to
Hmm.
write to each other back then. So we had to write letters and wait for them to pass each other in the post, and
Oh,
and then it was definitely, it was a commitment that we made to each other to
yes.
have a long distance relationship when there was no easy access to call each other. We had to write to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So we were very committed to each other
Mm-hmm.
right from the beginning because we fell in love straight away. And
Yeah.
then eventually he moved and I moved, and I think about 6 months before we got married, we were already engaged at that point. We decided
Yeah.
we should live in the same town before we live in the same house.
That would help. Yes.
So that was our story. And but I didn't know, and my husband didn't know when we got married, that his childhood had actually set him up to be stuck in survival mode. So he
Mhm.
even though he was a very confident person on the outside, inwardly he was very insecure, very he had a lot of trauma in his childhood. He was abused and neglected.
Mhm.
And I came from a very, very safe, secure childhood, and I just assumed that his childhood experience was mine, and I couldn't work
As you
out.
do when you grow up like
Yeah.
that, and that it's two worlds colliding. Wow.
So I had no idea that
Hmm.
his internal experience was so different to my internal experience. Like I
Hmm.
couldn't work out why he couldn't just decide to do something and do it. He had all this
Yeah.
self-sabotage, he had all these things happen. And so he had his first sort of midlife crisis at 27. I think they were about 5 years apart. Then they got to about 2 years apart, then 1 year apart, and they just kept getting closer and closer. And he just kept having episodes of depression, anxiety, stress.
Mm.
Absolutely beautiful man, but all the things he went through created a lot of prickles, as I described.
Yeah.
Beautiful heart and soul, but his prickles came out at home. He was
Hmm.
angry, he was
Yeah.
reactive, he was defensive, and and it was difficult. And then at the beginning of COVID, but during all that, even though that sounds, not obviously not ideal, during all that time, we also lived amazing, adventurous, risk-taking lives. So
Mhm.
we moved from where we got married. We moved, we gave up jobs, and we moved to do work that we really were invested in, and we weren't even sure we were going to get paid. And then,
Mhm.
so we made a lot of moves. We took a lot of risks. We were very focused on we want to have an incredible life. And so
Yeah.
so we lived an incredible life together. It's just that his stuff kept turning up and just
Mm.
being very unpleasant to have to navigate that in
Yeah.
our everyday lives. But we still achieved incredible things and, lived life, not afraid to take risks. We always believed that nothing was impossible.
Mm.
So we've got a beautiful story, but underneath it all was all this pain that was overwhelming my husband and being, coming out
Yeah.
in our home. But at the beginning of COVID, he had a mental health breakdown because he just couldn't soothe himself. He had no ability to calm his nervous system. He
Mm.
used to speak to thousands of people, and then he just couldn't leave the house. And so
Yeah.
thankfully he'd been a man who
When you
was
say he used to speak to thousands of people, you mean through his job, and then he would come home and is that
yes.
what you're saying? Yeah.
Yes, yes. So
And
he would
and
speak on
through
stages. He would travel New
yeah,
Zealand. He was a
yeah.
speaker. He was
Hmm.
an influential man.
Yeah.
But at the
And throw
beginning of
two children in the mix, right? You've got two children in there as
yes,
well. Yeah.
yes. So we have two. Yeah, they're now 31 and 29,
Hmm.
and I've also got a little granddaughter, Poppy, who's
Yeah, I love that
two,
name. It's so cute.
and
It's adorable.
so Poppy and I are like best little buddies. It's really special
Yeah.
to have so attached and so
Mm.
devoted to, she just loves me and I just love her. So it's pretty special.
It
And
is.
so yes, so we did move so we moved our children at 13 and 15 from New Zealand to
Yeah.
Australia. That was a big thing, and Dean was
Yeah.
very aware of the fact that moving countries was literally going to change the course of our family. Like when we got on
Hmm.
that plane, he just realized, this moment, this decision we've made is literally going to change the rest of our children's
All of your
lives
lives.
and
Yeah,
all of our
of
lives.
course.
And
Yeah.
so we've been very good at not letting anything hold us back. But he also had all this pain. So at the beginning of
Mhm.
COVID, that's when it just was too much for his mind, his system to cope with, and he just couldn't leave the house. He couldn't respond to messages. And so, but he'd been a very willing man to seek help, which is
Mhm.
incredible. A lot of people have all those symptoms of all their childhood, but they don't want to do anything about them. But he was always very willing to get help. So he reached out to his counselor and he went through this incredible process that resolved all his trauma. So he literally went from, all his life struggling with self sabotage, procrastination, depression, anxiety, stress, anger, defensiveness, reactivity. 3 weeks
Mm.
later, it was all gone. And so my jaw was like, and I'm like, who are you? It was so
Who are you?
exciting for me,
Yeah.
and he was just relaxed. He was calm. He was peaceful. We could talk about anything and everything. And I'm like, what? I know I'd already trained as a counselor at that point,
Mm.
and I'd been working with clients and I knew they were stuck in their trauma.
Yeah.
And when he just completely changed, I said, whatever you have just done, I mean, I knew what it was. I said, I have to
Yeah.
train in that. I have to do
Hmm.
that because I couldn't
Yeah.
ethically continue to help
I
my
hear you.
clients feel better
Yeah.
and give them strategies to manage their stuff when there's something that could resolve it. So that's what I do now. I've been doing that for 5 years. And then when
Yeah.
I trained in it, I went through the process. And even though I had a really good childhood, we all have stuff. So
Hmm.
everything that I'd been carrying was just gone. My fear was gone. There was more color in the world. My confidence went through the roof. And so we had 5 years together, beautiful 5 years together of
Where
neither of
everything
us
is resolved.
neither of us having anything that triggered us, not we were able to talk about, like I said, everything. So we had like,
Amazing.
so I actually wrote a book that I will be getting published soon, but not published yet, called I
Mhm.
Got a New Husband in 3 weeks. So
I
because
love that. On that note, before we go any further, because that title like will really spike some interest. I was like, I've got a new husband in 3 weeks, hold on. And coming from a widow, writing that book, that can be very misunderstood, so it will draw
yes,
a lot of people in out of curiosity, which I love. But before we go any further, I want you to, for those who've never heard of it, I want you to explain what TRTP is, because that's the modality that you trained in, that you refer to. And I know quite a lot about it because I experienced it on myself. This is how Kathy and I met, because I went to her for TRTP sessions for my childhood, and then we became friends. And now I'm working in the Backyard Peace Project with her. So there's this whole beautiful journey, and then I
yes,
met you through it. And
yes,
I
exactly.
know quite a few TRTP practitioners now, and all through Kathy, interestingly enough. So I know a lot about it, but for those who've never heard of it, can you, in layman terms, explain what that actually means and what it does?
So TRTP stands for the Richards Trauma Process.
Hmm.
And it's 3 sessions. The what it does is it resolves all the lies that we have taken on board, particularly in our childhood, because children take it. Children are egocentrical, so whatever happens to them, they think it's them. They are the reason. If
Yeah,
parents get divorced, children think, if
yeah,
only I'd
it's
been
their
good,
fault.
my parents would
Yeah,
be together. So because we're egocentrical when we're very young, we form beliefs about ourselves that are actually nothing to do with us. It's all about everybody else's stuff, but we don't have a
yeah.
filter. So the first session is actually getting rid of all the lies that we've taken on board and replacing them with the truth. Negative
Mm,
self-talk is completely gone at the end of
hmm.
that. It's just
Yeah.
incredible, the transformation. The second session is dealing with the distressing experiences that we've been through that are
Hmm.
stuck inside of us. We're still back there. It's still happening now. And then that has our whole system on alert, trying to protect us because it
Yeah,
thinks we're still back there at 4 years old. We're still back there at 10. We're still back there at 13. So the school bullying so our
yeah,
whole system that gets stuck in time. We're still back there. It's still happening now. So that causes us to react to anything sensory. It can be, anything we see, hear, smell, anything
yeah.
can just trigger
Anything
us
that
right
triggers.
back
Yeah.
to, in a millisecond, to I'm still back there at 4 years old. And what happens is the person in front of us isn't the problem. It's just there's something some sensory thing there has taken us back to that. And so when that's all resolved, when all those, it's still happening now, when those are all filed away in long-term memory, our whole system can go back to calm. We're not stuck in this fight, flight, freeze. We're not there.
Mm,
And the third session is just us. We no longer have lies carrying us any longer. We no
mm.
longer are stuck in those. It's still happening now. We've got this calm,
Yeah.
regulated nervous system. We're literally carrying no baggage. We've just got thriving
Mm,
software running us. And then the third session is where am I going in life? And
mm.
that was what transformed my husband's life. That's what transformed my life. And I've been doing it for 5 years with my clients, transforming lives. And really that's the beginning. Like once you've dealt with your stuff,
Yeah.
then you literally have the potential to be limitless. That your
Mm,
dreams can come true. And my dreams literally came true. Like
yeah.
once my husband
Quite
resolved
limitless.
his that I had a dream about a house, literally woke in the middle of the night with a dream about a house. That was our next house. It was at the beach. My childhood, I didn't know where the house was, but I found it then 2 days later. So I had a dream. The next day I came to Hervey Bay, which is where I live. And on the
Mm.
third day, I did a real estate search, found this house from my dream, and we couldn't afford it and all these things, but absolutely when you have a dream about a house and you find it, it becomes yours. But
I'm
that
sitting in
house,
mine as we speak. I love it.
and
Right.
my childhood dream as a little girl growing up in southern New Zealand was to live somewhere with palm trees, blue sky, golden sand, warmth, And so once I got this dream about this house, I literally can walk to the beach every day, watch the sunrise. So all
I
these
love that.
things transformed in our life. But then sadly my husband got diagnosed with cancer.
Mm,
And we honestly believed that he was going to beat cancer. We thought that this was just a little blip in our journey.
mm,
And so we never even talked about his passwords, or we never talked about what kind of funeral he had, because we would just,
mm,
but he had, it was 5 months from diagnosis to when he passed. But those 5 months were so beautiful. We just drew up all the drawbridges. We didn't have busy, crazy lives. We focused on him being well. We just created this beautiful time to just sit and chat and be with
mm,
each other. It was just beautiful, not in any way doing that because that was the end of his life. We were doing that because this is a season that we need to focus on him being well until he's over that, and then we'll be fine. And I remember saying to
yeah.
him during that, I said, now you've been through a mental health crisis in 2020. Now you're going through a physical health crisis. And I just said to him, how do they compare? Which is worse? And he just said, well, they're
Mm,
chalk and cheese. And he said, but the mental health crisis was worse because I had despair. And he said,
mm.
this one, I've got hope. And
Oh, okay.
and I
That's
also,
beautiful.
yeah, and I also said
Yeah.
to him, would how would you have coped with your cancer journey if you hadn't resolved your trauma? And he said it would
Mm,
have been hell. He
yeah.
said, he said, I'd have been angry, I'd have been fearful, and he said,
Mm,
and I would have made your life miserable.
no.
And because he just knew how he used to be, he just
Yeah.
knew that he would not have been calm, regulated. And so I just thought, well, what a beautiful gift it was that he resolved his trauma so that he could go through his cancer journey so graciously. So he was so grateful for everything I did because he got quite frail. I
Yeah.
had to bath him. I had to do all
Mm,
these things for him, and he just loved and adored and appreciated that I did that for him. But as he said,
yeah.
if he hadn't resolved his trauma, I would have
It
done
would
it
turn into
wrong.
anger and
It
yeah.
wouldn't have.
Yeah.
So I
It's
was just
incredible. You
so
know,
grateful through all of that.
yeah, and this is the key word here, right? Gratitude.
Yes.
And I think what stands out for me so much, like, and even when we sat and chatted over dinner, the way you talked about how he resolved his trauma and the beautiful outcome of that. And for me, I'm thinking, isn't this so incredible? I always look at that hindsight moment, when you
Yes.
look back and think how quickly he resolved that.
Mm.
How magical it is to have a tool that can literally resolve something in 3 sessions that we have been dealing with. And we're talking sometimes deep, deep trauma, and
Mm.
that can be resolved in 3 sessions and then come out and live a healthy and happy life till
Mm.
whenever the end of your life is and however that comes.
Yes.
But the thing that stands out for me the most is the fact that you said, how would you have handled your cancer if you hadn't resolved your trauma?
Yeah.
And how different that world would have been, and how much beauty there is in caring for someone who's appreciative of it and
Yes.
receiving, rather than the thought of caring for someone who is in that anger and despair and uh, the whole bargain denial, all these 5 stages of grief that actually usually come with anticipatory grief.
Mm.
That's where it belongs. The terminal illness, that's where all these stages of grief that are usually referred in the wrong space, that's where
Yes.
they come in.
Mm.
But that didn't even apply to him because he had resolved
Yes.
his childhood, his trauma. That is
Yes.
incredible. That's really beautiful. Talk to us a little bit more about your gratitude from your perspective, because I can see it, I can feel it when I listen to you. You wrote an entire book about this process. Share a little bit more about the book, and have you had a date when it's coming out?
No,
I,
well,
I might have missed that.
oh no, that's fine. I actually wrote the book 2.5 years ago. I just didn't get it published. And it took me 2 years to write it because I realized that because I was a counselor, because I had the language and the insights and the understanding, and I could describe what it was.
Mhm,
And so I wrote it, and he read it, like he read it two and a
mhm,
half years ago, and he said, the world needs to hear this story, because he used to
mhm,
think, and often there's this saying, that's just the way I am. It's
mhm.
my
Yeah.
personality. So yeah, that's what he used to say. Anger was just the way I am. That's just my personality. But his anger
Mm,
just disappeared after the 3 sessions. So it's nothing
mhm.
to do with personality. It was all to do with the pain. So
Yeah.
he
Cool.
so he read it, but I never got to publish it at the time because also when our little granddaughter was born, there was a family crisis that happened with them. So I had to
Mhm.
focus on them.
Yeah.
Then when my husband got unwell, I said, right, it's time we're focusing on each other. I'm going to pick up my book and I'm going to. So we actually contacted a publisher. We were ready. And then his needs got his needs, he required more of my time, which I was
Yeah.
very willing to give. So it never
Of
got
course.
published. But I actually went to
Yet.
Texas, and yes, because it's not procrastination, and it's not perfection, which is often reasons people write books and
Mm,
don't get that. It's actually because I want it to have a very big impact and to reach the right people and to be
yeah.
part of a whole movement. And so it went to an authors event in Texas in March to step back from it. Was all for people who've written a book or got a book to write, and to step right back from it and go, well, what is the purpose in writing your book? How does that
Mm,
impact your business? And it was just beautiful to go, okay, it's not just a book. There's so much more to it. So I'm now in the point that I've created a lot of space now and I actually just yesterday reached out to the lady that I learned all this from in America, and I've got an appointment with her tomorrow to get this movement and this book. And there's a second book I've written, which is
mhm.
just those, when I said Dean and I had such incredible lives, such adventurous lives, risk-taking lives, but we've had, and like the dream about my house and became a house, we've got so many amazing stories that I actually want
Yeah.
both those books coming out at the same time. So it's
Mhm.
not just the story of his pain, his distress, and his trauma, and who he became afterwards, and who I became afterwards as well,
Yeah.
but also the amazing, fun, like miraculous, mind-blowing stories of our lives as well. I really want those books to go hand in hand,
Mhm.
because they're both who we are. It's not just trauma. It's not
Hand
just
in hand in
resolving
bookstore
trauma.
land. Mm.
And it's all the really fun, exciting stories of our life too.
Yeah.
But for me, the gratitude thing, because I had resolved everything, and I, like, my husband had like 90% trauma running him, I suppose, and I had 10%, if you could scale it.
Yeah.
Um, Even the 10% has a big impact on you.
Mm.
And because I had dealt with everything, it's a very simple process that deals with everything. So when it's all the layers underneath, that means when someone passes, when we have another traumatic experience like losing a loved one,
Mm.
that it's all the layers underneath that cause it to get stuck. So
Yeah.
so two people can be in a car accident and one can walk away with PTSD and the other one doesn't. It's
Mhm.
not the car accident. So it's not the
It's
loss of losing my husband that,
yeah.
like I was not stuck for a moment. I never
No.
had any depression, anxiety, stress.
Mhm.
I was flooded with gratefulness because I look back
Yeah.
on our incredible lives. I look back on his journey. Even the last few days of his life, there was so many beautiful things happened. We'd had
Mhm.
family the week before.
Mhm.
Again, we weren't expecting him to pass. He wasn't frail
Mhm.
to the point of dying. It was actually a blood clot that took him very quickly.
Oh,
Um, so it wasn't that, he was getting far and far and we were preparing for his death. He was actually
yeah.
just starting chemo. He was
Yeah.
actually starting to fight the cancer, and then the blood clot took him. But just all the little moments leading up, even the day that he passed, exactly the right person was there. to do CPR and things like that, that there was just so many things that I was just flooded with gratefulness. And because I didn't
Mm.
have all the layers underneath for the trauma of losing my husband to
Yeah.
get stuck on, I was able to find a, and I didn't even have to find it. I was actually just flooded with gratefulness. It was just my
Yeah.
overwhelming feeling, even moments after he'd passed and the ambulance, the paramedics had gone. That was my overwhelming feeling. Shock, yes,
Mhm.
shock, bawling my eyes out, but also gratefulness because of all those moments, or even those
Yeah.
5 months. He could have gone
Yeah.
in a car accident. You know,
Mhm.
those 5 months together were
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
beautiful and tender and intimate. And so I've helped a lot of people who are stuck in their grief because of all the layers underneath. And when we resolve all the layers underneath, then the grief, like I had one man I worked with who lost his son when he was like 19. Every time it got to the anniversary of him passing, every time it got to his birthday, he would get into this sort of black hole and he really struggled to get out of it. He wouldn't
Yeah.
talk about his son because he was overwhelmed with the sadness of losing him. He went through the process with me. After the second session, he turned up to work the next day and he couldn't wait to tell everyone how amazing his son was and all the
Oh,
fun stories that
I
he
love
had of
it.
his son. He was just so full of joy and to share with everyone what an incredible
Mm.
young man he had as a son, but he couldn't even talk about him the
Mm.
day before.
Yeah.
And that man is so happy now. He's got himself a boat. He's out, like he's
Mhm.
just literally living his best life that I know
Mm.
that his son would absolutely want him to
Yeah.
be, celebrating life. And yeah.
Yeah. I always say, like, when I work with people in their grief, through their grief journey, nothing highlights your childhood wounds more than when you're grieving. It really brings everything up to the surface. And what you just said before, it makes so much sense, because there is all this stuff that you feel like, oh, now that this and that happens, and you can easily go into a poor me state. But actually, I never felt like that.
Mm,
Well, after my dad passed, absolutely, I went down the poor me, and everything's happening to me sort of
mm,
road. And then when I went through my own, healing myself, healing my trauma, my own entire journey, because I've done so many different things and modalities before I found TRTP as well. But when Rob died, there was a very different approach. It didn't come as fast as you describe it, but 9 months into it, I had this, what I now refer to as spiritual epiphany, where I thought, wow, we have chosen this.
mm,
I had this moment of, Rob and I have chosen this on a soul level. This is what we came here to experience, for me to do the work that I'm doing now. And there was so much love and gratitude and acceptance and healing and all of that in one
mm,
moment that just came over me, where I thought, this is incredible. It took me a long time, though, to really process it to a point where I now can absolutely openly talk about it. I was not ready to share it straight away because it felt so personal and so sacred that in that moment I was not able to share that with anyone else. And then
mm,
slowly but surely, while I was processing it and absorbing that more and more, I was able to go out in
mm,
the world and share it. And in the coming back to the Back at Peace project again, the first book that we all wrote together, I share my story in there about that spiritual epiphany called Beyond Grief. So, Tanya, the work that you do now, tell us a little bit, because we're almost at the yeah, we're almost at the end of our interview. Oh my God, it always happens way too fast. But I want you to share a little bit about how can people find you when they want to work with you? Because I can only imagine that it would have sparked a lot of interest now for people to go, look, I can get rid of my trauma in how many sessions? Three?
3 sessions.
I
Yes.
need to talk to this lady.
It's
How
incredible.
can they
Yeah.
find you? We'll obviously share all the links in the show notes, but can you
Yes.
share a little bit about how that works for them.
Yes. So the only way to contact me is really by Facebook. So you can send a personal friend request to me, Tania Comerford on Facebook, but I also have a business Facebook page called Arise Plus Shine. And the reason I don't have a website, I just have a Facebook page because I literally every day am doing videos. I am putting up content. Like I'm just sharing my life. I actually shared my life in video right from when Dean passed, like because I was actually okay to be very open about my experience. So I mean, it's not just about grief, but it's just about living a free and abundant life is
Yeah.
so the only way to contact me, I do have an email, but to be honest, I don't get to see my emails very often. So there's a risk in emailing me that it might take me a while to find it, but Facebook
Yeah.
is the way to go. But I actually run retreats. So this house that I had a dream about and it, miraculously became mine, or my husband's and mine, and now it's mine. People actually fly from all around Australia, New Zealand, and it will be
Yeah.
beyond that to work with me. They do a 7-day retreat. We do the first session when they arrive, or the day after they arrive, get them settled in. They do the second session at the end of the week. They fly home in the weekends, and it doesn't have to be weekend to weekend, but that's usually how it works. And the third session I do online with them. And they literally get to go home without their baggage. It's just
That's incredible.
it's so
That's incredible.
exciting. And they get to come away from, because often there can be stress at home or stress in the extended family or stress at work. And they actually just get to come away to a lovely, warm environment. They just get to work. They have those 2 sessions. They've got to listen to an audio in between session 1 and 2, and they get to put their feet in the sand if they love it. They get to walk along an esplanade. They just get to, and Hervey Bay has the most tranquil water. We're not crashing
It is
waves. Beautiful climate. It's
so
literally
peaceful.
paradise. So they get to come to paradise and they get to just unplug from the stress of
Like
life,
the
do
time
this
has stopped there in
beautiful
Hervey Bay. It's
process. So,
incredible.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
love
how
this.
people come to work with me. And then I work beyond that, because once we've resolved our stuff, we literally can become limitless beyond that. So I love seeing my clients, their dreams come true, everything they imagine come true, and even beyond. I said, like, we're not settling there. So it's a lot of fun.
We're not settling with great. We want fantastic and outstanding. Tania, I'm so grateful that you and I connected, and in particular that you and I got to have dinner together. That's
Yes, that was very
such a
special.
rare occasion to actually meet guests before we come online and really get a feel for your story. So thank you so much for not just sharing your story here, but for everything that you do. You literally are changing lives, which is amazing. And for anyone listening to this who really feels drawn to experiencing that themselves and letting go of their baggage, you can bring it to Hervey Bay and leave it there. Tania will take care of it and dispose of it. Please come back after we've finished the live stream here. We'll be putting the details in the show notes, how you can reach out to Tania. So I just want to say thank you for being here, and everybody who is intrigued, come follow, click the subscribe button for weekly updates, but you will find all the contact details for Tania in the show notes below. So this is Tania and Marie signing off. Thank you for being here.
Yes,
Bye for